Today's episode is sponsored by Elementor. People ask me, Evan, how do you have the time to learn to code on top of doing the artwork and making the products in your store and recording your podcast? I don't know the first thing about coding, but that doesn't matter because Elementor will help you build a pro website without any code. You can drag and drop. There's hundreds of website designs, hundreds of widgets, and dynamic content. You can make a great looking website that's set up for WooCommerce. So if you're selling something, they've got you covered. If you click the link in the description, you'll get 33% off a basic plan for your first year. Elementor, making websites accessible again. All right, let's get into it. Hey, Catalyst crew. Welcome to Catalyst Corner, episode 46. It's Thursday, so we've got Jim F0123 Art on with us, and yeah, let's get into it. How you doing, Jim?
Yeah, doing okay. How you been?
Just getting the orders done.
Yeah.
Cross that 1,000 threshold.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
They say, you know what they say is like every milestone you hit, like you hit 500 and then like your next 500 doesn't take as long as you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it is interesting to kind of, see that kind of play out because we're already chipping away now at, the next set of numbers.
Right. Yeah.
And, in the grand scheme of things, it's small, but it's a personal milestone.
Well, it's all going to start somewhere, right? So, I mean, you're crossing important milestones. It's growing. It's getting bigger by the day. So, that number might sound small now, but in a very short amount of time, you're going to be looking back and saying, yeah, I remember those days back when it was only 1,000. Now it's tens of thousands.
Yeah. So, It feels good. So I actually had to ship out a few more of those Onis to Japan.
Nice.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, cool. I told you, it's not, it costs a lot to get them out there, but it's rad to have,
right.
supporting the boys.
Exactly.
So have you watched anything?
I have. You talked about this a while back.
Oh. And
I never had gotten to see the original one. I never saw the second one either. You had talked about the second one. But little movie called Terrifier.
Oh, I love it. What'd you think?
So I loved it.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's camp.
So if you want camp, if you want gore, if you
gore
want
porn all the way.
Bad acting, but it's everything you want in a slasher movie.
You can't take your eyes off of art.
You've got a great slasher, right? That is right up there with your Freddy Kruegers and your Jasons and your Mike Myers.
He is. He's one of the few modern day slashers.
Right. So I mean, you've got it. You've got a great character, and just the thing. It's funny. It's stupid. It's silly. It's just everything you'd want in a slasher film. Now, I'm excited to, at some point, watch the second one, but...
So the guy that directed it did all... in the first one, he did the makeup, he wrote it, he directed it. A guy after my own heart. He did all the special effects.
Nice.
And he did a lot of it in the second one, too.
Okay.
And then, I think a lot of the feedback he got was, it's great, because it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's 3 fucking hours. It's too long.
Yeah.
What I heard was for the third one, he's still going to write and direct it, but he's going to pull back on the editing and everything. And I think, if they can trim it down to 1:50
for a horror movie, that's right around the time frame that you should typically have it at.
Right. It becomes a chore after that.
Right. The special effects were not there.
No, but it's
it was just what you want.
It has almost shades of Evil Dead.
But you have a character that is charismatic and intriguing, and again, not that you necessarily want the villain to win, but
he's got a great personality and he doesn't speak. Right. So to be able to kind of come across as a fan favorite without saying a word.
Right. But you want that's the whole thing. You want to see this guy. You want to see him perform.
He's got kind of the danger of Jason with the camp and attitude of Freddy post 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm definitely in. I give it 2 thumbs up for that movie. What about you? What did you catch?
So I watched a couple.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I'll start there. I did not have the joy that you had watching Terrifier. So the first one I watched was the better of the two.
Okay.
And that was Cocaine Bear.
Oh, the old Cocaine Bear.
I can't tell if Elizabeth Banks is just still so green when it comes to directing.
Maybe.
Because there were moments where I was like, this is pretty good, actually. I think they could have probably went with not an actual bear, but like, when in the close-ups and stuff, a practical model instead of using CGI the whole time.
Okay.
That was a little distracting.
Okay.
The premise was good. It's fun. It's fun.
Right.
And there were elements of humor. It almost took itself a little too seriously.
Oh, all right.
You had Ray Liotta in his last performance. It was cool to see it. And listen,
that's cool.
He was good. He ate up the screen.
Right.
The scene that really sticks out is like the EMTs get called in, and they go and they find the sheriff, who's Margot Martindale. So she's the sheriff and she's hurt. The EMT opens the door and a head falls out of a bucket.
Of course.
And then the cocaine, the bear's fucking going out of his mind.
Yeah, as it does.
There were funny moments. They get into the ambulance, the bear's chasing them, they're screaming. It should have went more Terrifier than The Gray.
Yeah, I mean, this was not a movie that lent itself to being serious. Because, I mean, obviously it's based on a true story, but the true story is not anything remotely close to this movie.
No.
So they took what sounded comical and it was harmless in real life, and they made it into this movie that they wanted to make bombastic.
Obviously, Charlie's Angels reboot was garbage. So initially, I'm a little wary going into it, going like, well, maybe Elizabeth Banks can't do it. But then I watched this, and I'm like, well, maybe she can. Maybe if they're going to take... Well, so it did well. It made money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it made money because it had a small budget.
Right.
And people were interested because the premise is interesting.
Yeah, but it doesn't even rate that bad. Like,
no.
Even on, like, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 68.
Yeah.
Which for a movie like that isn't bad.
Elizabeth Banks, I agree, I think is a little bit still green, but Elizabeth Banks is very much an SJW. If you go that route, I don't think she'll have success. If she just makes entertaining movies, I think she can be successful. Because I don't think she's bad in general.
My hope is that she takes this win. Because I would call it...
Oh, it's a win.
I would call it
it's
a win. And go, okay, well, they're going to take me serious as a director now. Maybe I don't have to make everything an outrage.
You said what you said about you don't think that men will take you serious in this type of... But
It wasn't that. She just talked about how Ray Liotta was great to work with, and he took all of her direction, and people were telling her going in that actors in general don't always take all your director notes.
So what I'm hoping is that she
now that
takes...
she's had a win.
Right. Now that she has a win, she doesn't have to go down that path anymore.
It's more, all right, there was some potential in Cocaine Bear. Keep honing your craft. Make entertaining movies.
Right. And
So
if
that's
you do
the
that,
thing.
people will... I mean, again, you've made a movie now that people are going to give you an opportunity for the next one.
Right, and I'm curious to see where she goes. I'm never anti any of this shit. I want woman directors.
Well, of
I
course.
want trans people. I think that the diversity of all of it makes things better. But if you suck, you can't hide behind what makes you different.
Right. Don't make it about your message. Make an entertaining movie. And if you're a trans person or you're a person of color, make an entertaining movie. But if your movie is going to be preaching to us about your cause or about your SJW views...
If you want to make a fucking movie like that, make a movie about rights. Otherwise, you have to be more nuanced with your message.
Right.
So the other one I watched was not good.
Oh, no.
Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Blood and Honey.
Nice.
Do you know anything about it?
I know very little about it, to be honest.
Let me tell you what I thought going into it. Going into it, I just assumed it was like a couple of dudes that dressed up like Winnie and Piglet and were killing people.
Yeah, that's what my assumption would be as well.
Well, that's not the case.
That's not it. Okay.
So the plot is that Winnie and Piglet are very upset with Christopher Robin.
Oh, as they sometimes get.
He went off to college and shut them out.
Oh, just left them behind.
And in their loneliness and despair, the darkness crept in and made them monsters. So they are actually Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Oh, so this isn't people in costumes.
No.
This is actually Winnie the Pooh and Piglet out for revenge because Christopher Robin wronged them.
Right.
Oh.
And they go on the killing spree. And
nice.
And the thing of it is, right, I could even almost get behind something like that, right? Like
almost.
I liked Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage, where like the things came to life or whatever.
Yeah.
I can get on board with bizarre shit.
Sure.
And there were like hints, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. You should have done more of an exposition at the beginning, but it seemed to just fall apart. You know what I mean? Like it was just. Yeah, there were a couple of gory kills but what really threw me off was I thought they were men in masks.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, these are creatures. I think if you're going to do it right, it can be fun. But that was not the right way to do it.
Yeah, that is not what I was expecting to hear.
You know what you lean into is you just go, these people are obsessed with Winnie the Pooh. They're crazy. And they're killing people.
Right.
No. You got to go with Eldritch fucking Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, that's odd.
Did you see they were giving out the presidential medal?
Yes.
For arts.
Yes, I did see this.
And Mindy Kaling got one.
Yeah.
Now, initially, I was like, are you
Yeah.
Are you fucking for real?
Yeah, could you be any more tone deaf?
Right, like that's spitting in the...
Right.
But then I read it, right? And it's like, she was already on the books for 2021. So before Velma was even, conceived in the bowels of hell, she was getting one.
Yeah.
Now, I still don't think she deserves one. I think she's a hack.
Well, I don't... Well, there's the thing, right? Like, take Velma out of it. I don't think she's done anything that would warrant it.
She was on The Office. She had her own TV show for a while.
None of it was super popular.
It's all very mediocre to me.
It's all very vanilla.
Mindy Kaling is hit or miss.
Yeah,
like we
miss.
We know her because of how awful Velma was.
Right.
And I said, oh yeah, Mindy Kaling. You'd be like, what, that girl from The Office?
Yeah. Not the star of The Office. She was just in The Office.
They gave one to Bruce Springsteen. And then Julia Louis-Dreyfus got one, which I think, again, pretty fair. You were on Seinfeld.
Yeah.
She's got that Veep show has gone on for a long time.
Yeah.
She's not a slouch.
No. And I mean, again, she's in the MCU now, so she's still doing something.
Seinfeld is, again, one of those things where you can go anywhere in the United States and say Seinfeld.
Right.
And people know what it is. You had Gladys Knight. Oh, and Vera Wang, who again,
another.
Like...
Yeah, that name you can say anywhere in the world.
Right.
And you're going to know who that is.
You have these iconic people, Bruce Springsteen, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Vera Wang, Gladys Knight, and Mindy Kaling.
You can say at some point every one of those names was at the top of their respective game or close to it besides Mindy Kaling.
Was selling out stadium.
And he still does. And he still does.
People dig him.
Gladys Knight for R&B, right? Top of the charts. Bruce Springsteen, top of the charts. Julia Louis-Dreyfus was on a show that was one of the biggest shows on sitcoms on TV.
Yep.
Right. Vera Wang, obviously. Iconic for fashion.
Right. She does dresses like that's her big. Just was so strange to me because you have all these. I use icon because I'm not a fan of all of them, but they are icons.
Right. Sure. I agree.
And then Mindy Kaling.
But Mindy Kaling has never been, not that she's never been at the top. She's never been in second place.
The timing is like funnier than anything that was on Velma.
Yes.
Right? Initially, I was like furious.
Well, the timing is just so bad.
She has the lowest rated cartoon in history.
But this is what unfortunately makes it so poor, because you're giving somebody an award for arts when you just finished making the #1 worst ever animated show in history.
But it is for 2021. So that calmed me down a little bit because I was like, all right, cool. It's before Velma was even conceived. But then I was like, wow, this is funnier than anything that came out of the writer's room.
Well, but here's the thing. Take Velma out of it, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody think that Mindy Kaling deserves to be along with those other names? Even if you take Velma out of it. Even if Velma never happened, I'd still look at that and say, what the fuck did she do that she would get this award? She's not ever succeeded in anything. Well, she's just a piece of a puzzle that's much larger than her.
Let us know in the comments if you think she's deserving of the award or if it's some kind of, play to keep pushing the Mindy Kaling train even though it's run out of fuel a long time ago.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to talk to you about the producers of Wednesday hated Jenna Ortega.
Well, did you hear the reasons why?
It's the same reasons why the producers of The Witcher hated Cavill.
I want to talk about that for a second, though, after we talk about this. So when you have an actor who knows the source material, understands the source material, and doesn't want to put out shit because your writing is shit and you're destroying the character and the lore, you're going to get backlash, and deservedly so. And I'm glad that they made the changes that she wanted, because if you didn't, Wednesday would have flopped.
I don't know when this shift in mentality happened where the writing and the acting is totally divorced from each other.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea is the actor's job is to embody the character. Mm-hmm. And when you're taking on a role that is pre-established, no one wants you to do a repeat. No one wants you to repeat Christina Ricci or anything like that. You make it your own.
Yeah, and she did.
But we all know who Wednesday is.
Right.
And the writers wanted her to be peppy,
gay,
excited about, people complimenting her outfits.
Right. Like getting excited about a pretty dress.
Wednesday Addams getting excited about a dress
is the polar opposite of who Wednesday Addams is.
Now, we watched Wednesday, and it's pretty good. Instead of just being like, oh, you were right, they are doubling down and just being like, oh, she was a terror to work with.
Yeah, the same thing they're saying that they said about Cavill.
But what kind of whose playbook is that? It's like
that's the woke SJW playbook.
The fans loved her. The people are tuning in.
Look, Jenna Ortega as Wednesday Addams has created a dance that will now live forever
It's been trending on TikTok for months.
Right. So again, you have something now that is going to that is in pop culture. Right.
Well, the problem is it's the same thing with Cavill, right? I can't think of anyone else who could play Geralt now. Just like I can't think of anyone else who could play Wednesday.
Right. Oh, no. I mean, again, you can get other people to play them eventually. I mean, because I thought Christina Ricci was fantastic.
So did I. And I thought Jack Nicholson as the Joker was great. And then Heath Ledger came along.
Right.
That's what I'm saying is when it's this new iteration.
But but the thing is, you have to take what was there and try to make it your own. Better it if you can, but it's got to be, true to the character that came before it. And like you said, Joker has done that. Wednesday now has done that. If you made Wednesday to what they wanted you to do, it's dead. DOA.
But the
right
thing
on
is,
arrival.
Right, is that it's hard to say where Wednesday is going to go, because she was doing an interview and she's like, yeah, next season is going to be less about romance and more about Wednesday and the family,
right?
And I'm thinking those were my favorite. That's the thing, is that the episode where Gomez and Morticia were on it was the best episode.
Well, Netflix had just made a whole big change. I think you've probably seen this too, where they said, we made a giant mistake in our programming. We're going to get back to profitability. And they have, because they made a major shift in what their content is. and they've come back to profitability. So they're not going to make that mistake. Netflix is not going to allow that Wednesday mistake. So when season 2 comes out, if it's, hey, whatever Jenna Ortega says, that's how we're going to do it, is going to happen.
The thing of it is it's almost a betrayal, right? That the actors have to, protect the properties. It's supposed to fall on the writers,
right,
to protect the properties.
Which here's what pisses me off, right? This one got me. So we know the writer that was on The Witcher left.
Right.
Went to...
Well, they said... I think he got fired.
Sure. Either way. But went to Marvel, right, and landed the writing job for X-Men 97, the animated show that's coming out.
Yeah. Is it a continuation or
It's
a reboot?
Supposed to be a continuation.
Cool. Sign me up.
And I was on board with you. And then he said, I'm not letting anybody onto my team that doesn't know the lore and respect the lore of what came before me.
Perfect.
I'm like, yup. He just did an interview yesterday or a day ago.
Yeah.
So
they got him indoctrinated.
I'm writing the X-Men for the modern audience through my lens of a gay black man. You fucking son of a bitch. You had me. I believed you.
Bro,
and then you fucking bent me over and stuck it.
The mouse has power. They brought him into the building and just like
Yep.
That's incredible.
So everything, I was so on board with this guy. Everything that he was saying, I was, this is going to be awesome. And nope, it's going to be another woke piece of Disney shit.
Yeah, but Disney's doubling and they don't here's the thing is that if Netflix has pumped the brakes, right?
Yep.
And reversed course, which I know that's hard because egos are huge in these companies. But if they've actually taken a minute, right? Here's the play. You cancel Witcher because you're not Cavill's gone.
Right.
So you got to cancel it. Maybe you can do the animated stuff,
sure,
to keep the IP alive.
You could do that.
And if you're lucky, you get Lauren Hersick out. Never work with her again.
Right.
And maybe in 5-10 years, Cavill's going to age a little bit, and you can do older Geralt.
Right.
You bring him back.
Sure, you could do that.
You have the reconciliation. And you can keep the IP alive with the animation.
Sure.
But you need to pump the brakes hard with all of this. We don't care about source material. We're going to tell the stories we want to tell.
Yeah.
All your IPs belong to us.
Look at how good Willow did.
Gone.
But then you hear the jackass producer.
The thing. This is what I'm talking about, though, is just take the fucking L, bro.
Right.
And he's just like, well, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's not canceled. We just released everyone from their contracts.
Yes. So what you're saying is, in 10 years, Willow might come back.
Right.
And so in your mind, well, it's not canceled because in 10 years it might come back.
Here's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that show Mindhunter on Netflix?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So that's a David Lynch.
Yes.
And it's good.
Okay.
It's like, and what I mean by that is whether you're into serial killers or not, from an artistic standpoint, it is done masterfully.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly expensive to film anything in the 70s, right?
Sure.
And 80s. Like, that costs money to make shit look like that, right?
Yeah.
And it's got super high, scores and everything. It is pretty universally loved. Costs too much money, doesn't have a big enough audience to justify the price. It made got 2 seasons, and then they put it on hiatus.
Yep.
And then they released the cast, and then they, Lynch did an interview, and he's like, maybe in 5 or 10 years, but not on Netflix.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, Willow's dead.
It's dead. Yeah.
There's no, and you know what's crazy? Willow is dead. There's no bringing Willow back now.
Well, again, you had a niche 80s movie that had a cult audience. You brought it back, and what you did to it so much bastardization of this IP that the people that did enjoy Willow now hate Willow, and the people that never knew about the original movie that now watch this hate this. So you have nobody that wants this back.
It's crazy to me to see what they've done, because I don't know if the thought process was, well, if we make a couple stinkers, they may not like this, but they'll always be the original. And it's like, no, I can't watch old Willow now because I know what you've done to it.
And here's the thing. No one was begging for more Willow.
I was excited when they announced it.
Sure. Anybody that liked the original, but no one was begging for it.
There's not a lot of good high fantasy out there. And I was like, all right, and when I say good, right, CW does a lot of shit, and I'm not shitting on them, but it's just like, I want something that's a little bit, has a little more money behind it.
Right, exactly.
And there's not a lot. We had Game of Thrones, that fell apart in the end. Mm-hmm. Then we had House of Dragons. So you got House of Dragons, which is pretty well received.
That's what you got now.
And that's more dark fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking high fantasy, Lord of the Ringsy type of shit.
Right.
And they announced Willow, they announced Rings of Power, all at like the same time. And I was like, oh, great. I need this. This is what I need, I need some high fantasy from IPs that I loved as a child to kind of pull me out of the awfulness of the world.
Right.
And even like the first couple previews on Willow looked pretty good. Mm. But then when we saw what Disney was doing.
Right.
And then I watched it, I was like, but why? Why do it to this? Why don't just make your own fucking thing that we can hate separately?
All right. So if anybody that's out there that has a franchise, if you want it dead, hire Erin Kellerman, because she knows how to kill any type of franchise or be a part of ruining franchises. She's awful. I don't know why.
Yeah, everything
she keeps on getting hired. She keeps on failing upwards, and I don't get it.
Yeah, that one's weird. It's crazy too, because like some of the best stuff in there was like the guy who played Borman, Amir Chadha Patel. He was funny. He was good. He was like a relatively good replacement, for Val Kilmer and stuff. And
yeah.
Except that they had to make him an idiot. Right? And that's what they always do. Ruby Cruz, like, I can't imagine she's going to have much of a career.
No, she was awful.
Right, but the thing is that, the character is what it is, right?
Right.
So maybe they just did a very unlikable...
Yeah, it was...
And Tony Revolori, I mean, he's getting work.
Yeah, and he'll get other work. But at the end of the day, this stuff has got to stop. And it's all Disney. Disney is the only one. Everybody else, like I said, Netflix has done a course correction. Warner Brothers Discovery has done a course correction.
Yeah, but like the guy in charge, Jonathan Kasdan, who by the way looks like he is stoned out of his mind all the time.
Yeah.
Every interview he gives, I'm like, this dude just ripped the bong.
Right.
If you look at his credits, he did Solo was his big one.
Right. A failure.
Right.
Massive failure.
Like he worked on Silverado when he was a kid, like a whatever.
Yeah.
But like his big claim to fame was Solo.
Right. The only Star Wars movie to ever lose money.
Right.
That's your claim to fame. And now you go to Willow and it's dead completely because of what you did.
But good job. They keep doing this. They keep hiring these fucking
Disney is doubling down on this shit. Like everybody else is saying, you know what?
Well, Netflix,
we made the mistake.
Netflix is. I think what's happening is Netflix was really banking on The Witcher being kind of, a franchise for them.
Right.
And it was.
Yeah.
Even with season 2 being what it was.
Yeah.
People were still even I was on board. I was like, well, I don't like what they did, but,
sure.
Let's bring it around.
Yeah.
And I was excited that they were doing the Witcher verse and we were going to get some extra, because again, I'm not I'm very okay with you telling other stories in the universe.
Sure.
But it's just, it failed. It's going to be dead.
Oh, it's dead.
And now when I say to you Netflix, right? Mm-hmm. You go, oh, Stranger Things.
Yeah.
That's got 1 season left.
Right.
What else?
You're going to get the 2nd season of Wednesday.
Right.
That's the only other thing that you're going to say
right.
that Netflix is going to have that anybody is excited for.
I mean, I was on board with The Witcher.
Yep.
That was my thing.
Sure.
Oh, why do you keep your subscription? I love The Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone.
Gone.
So you've lost a pillar.
Yeah.
So at least they said, I don't want my foundation to crumble. We lost a pillar. What did we do to lose this pillar?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the stories that we're telling disrespect the source material, and we're pushing message over story.
Right.
Disney, on the other hand, is
more
just
and more
saying,
of it.
2 of their pillars are gone now.
Yes.
And they're, instead of saying, uh-oh, they're going, well, you're racist. You're a misogynist. It's the audience's fault.
Right. Yeah. If you don't like it, it's your fault.
You're just not intelligent enough. It's high art.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's all blame the fans always.
Right. And so it's just bizarre to me because it's like, did you see the clip of the, he's like the chief marketing officer, whatever the fuck he is, of Disney, busting out that lightsaber?
Oh, I think I have.
It's like one, it actually retracts and everything.
Yes.
That is so cool.
Right.
And I watched it and I go, oh man, 10 years ago, I would have fucking thrown up from excitement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like now I go, that's really cool. I wonder how they did it. But I hate Star Wars.
Right. Yeah, and Mandalorian Season 3's ratings are proving that people are done.
Here's the thing, is I've become accustomed to the binge.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to just wait.
Sure.
And then watch it, because I watched Season 1, and I really liked Season 1.
Yeah, as most everybody did.
And I watched Season 2, and I liked it a little less, but the ending is probably the best moment in Star Wars Disney.
Fantastic.
Disney Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'll wait, I'll wait or whatever. But I saw a clip the other day of Grogu, who's fine. Like, I don't have anything against Grogu.
Right.
But, they're on Mandalore, right? There's all the other Mandalorians or whatever, and they're training and fucking whatever. And, he's in this training exercise, and he's like flipping, he does this like flip.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is the fucking dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Not even because it's not believable, because we've seen Yoda flip around.
Sure.
It's just that the FX were garbage.
Oh, and that's one of the biggest issues that they've got going is their VFX is just absolute trash.
It seems like they might have, if the ship is sinking, they may have plugged a hole.
Yeah. Well, so before we get into this, I want to say this. I don't necessarily believe that the problem is solved.
No, me neither.
Okay.
But I think Feige has to go.
But what I think you might get is a slight more open-mindedness. And what I mean by that is this bitch was the fucking absolute tyrant ruler that created, and it's not just Marvel, it extends to to Disney, and we can get into that in a second, but this is by no means, this is only the start, not the finish.
No, but I think it is, Netflix is pumping the brakes, which is good to see.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like finally Disney is, because the thing of it is, right, and I've said this to you before, with these giant conglomerates, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you think about it like, a presidential cycle, right?
Yeah.
you don't really feel the effects of what a sitting president does until he's already gone.
Sure.
It takes a tremendous amount of time for the causation to actually, rear up.
Yeah,
and
very true.
That's very true with these corporations, too. And so, in my head, I see Disney as this giant, like, mammoth.
Yep.
And, all of us cavemen are just throwing the spears at the mammoth, and it's like it's finally slowing down. Because it's like, how many hits can you take? Even at Disney, there's a limit to how much you can fail.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, losing billions of dollars is going to change your attitude real quick.
At the end of the day, money talks.
Sure. Of course it does. You have shareholders that are looking at you. And to your point, and I'm glad you said that, because to your point, this is all Bob Iger's fault. He was the guy that put it in place. He was the sitting president at the time this shit started. And it came to manifest with someone else was sitting in his seat. And now he's back. But at the end of the day, everything that's wrong with Disney is Bob Iger's fault.
It's crazy because, again, 10 years ago, I was singing I'm like, oh, he's a genius. He's really got some foresight because he bought everything.
Yeah, well over cost, but he wanted it, so he bought it.
Sure,
whatever.
He bought it, but like, look at what he paid for Marvel and Lucas, right? That's made its money back.
Sure.
So, like, yeah, maybe he paid more, but like, he's gotten his money back.
Yeah, not with Fox, but
no, Fox.
That's going to take a while, because you grossly overpaid for Fox.
I would say Fox was a failed deal.
Yes.
And if Comcast wanted to, they could probably. I mean, you could put the hurt on them next year.
Yeah.
But take that out. Like, it's very interesting that he was back. And I know he wants out, but
sure,
you can't. He wants whatever the deal is, right? Because generally with these what do they call them, parachute packages or whatever, you have to stick around for like 5 years because if they know how it works. They know it takes X amount of time to...
Right.
Which is why he's back in the first place.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Chapek was a disaster.
Disaster.
Awful.
Yes.
It's insane to me that dude's going to have another CEO job.
No, probably not.
We'll see. We keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
But, Iger comes back in and initially is ready to double, triple down, with the woke message and everything.
Oh, and he still is. That has not changed. He still is.
Well, why is she?
And he just said
why
it.
is she fired then?
Okay, well, I'll tell you why. Because here's the thing,
they need
right?
a scapegoat, right?
Yes and no, right? So she was the checkbox, right? She's a female.
Yep.
She's Spanish, and she's gay, right? She was the checkbox.
Right. Yeah. She's
for woke.
Right. I get it.
So this wasn't, again, you don't fire this person unless you really have to.
Right. Like, generally you don't see, a CEO of Chapek's level get fired unless you really fuck up.
So
same thing is what I'm saying.
So let's start off with her job,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So she was post-production and VFX. Two of the worst issues that's plaguing
But what I don't
Marvel.
understand is that if you look at, Endgame and before, the VFX was fine.
Right.
So what happened?
She was granted more power.
Oh, they made the leash longer.
Right.
Okay.
See, same with Feige, right?
Right.
Same with Feige.
They gave him a longer leash.
These people got more power, more control, more autonomy to do what they wanted.
Right.
And they fucked it up royally. So
yeah, a lot of creatives, function better in a structured environment.
Yeah. So she was the one who went to war with the VFX houses. She's the one that the VFX houses said, I'm not going to work with Disney anymore because of her.
But
they named her by name.
Here's the thing. In that sphere, if you're good at VFX, you can go anywhere.
Right. And they have. These people have. They've blacklisted now Disney. They refuse. Now, maybe that'll change that she's gone, but they all left.
It's going to take a while.
Right. But they left because they said, we don't like this person. She's a tyrant. We're refusing to work with you any further. So the VFX suffered. It's the biggest joke in phase 4 and 5. So there's that, right?
But the thing is, and the reason why I like to have these conversations with you is because, we dive into it to this level because I go online and I see people going, well, the VFX in Wakanda Forever weren't that bad. You just hate the movie. And it's like, no, they were fucking bad.
Right, they were terrible. There's nobody that knows, anybody that knows anything about VFX will not tell you that it was good.
Yeah, don't defend them.
Right. Don't defend what is that it doesn't have a defense to it. But here's how unlikable she is, right? And this goes to play with this whole thing. She was asked one time about, somebody interviewed her and asked her about her boss, Kevin Feige, and her response was, "He's not my boss." And it's like, bitch, this is the
what
boss.
What do you mean he's not your boss?
He's not her direct boss. So she bristled at the fact that this person said, your boss.
Who's her direct boss?
There's somebody above her.
Yeah, but here's the thing, is that if
Kevin Feige's the fucking boss of all of it.
Right.
So he's your boss.
Right, just Bob
because you
Iger's
may
your
not
like
right, you don't report to him directly because you have a boss above you that's below him. But when someone says Kevin Feige's the boss, if you talk about Marvel, he's your boss. There's no fucking ifs, ands, or buts. He's the guy. And for you to have that attitude, he's not my boss. Who the fuck are you? And this is why people hate this woman, because that's the attitude that she takes. He's not my boss. Yeah, he's your fucking boss.
It's just it's bizarre. Like, maybe it's an outside look in it. Well, let me say this to you, right? So Catalyst has been around a little, like almost a year and a half now. We've been live.
Yeah.
And I go on the forums sometimes and stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are selling anything, it doesn't have to be this stuff we're doing.
Right.
Treat it like the customers are a burden.
Yeah.
And that to me, I bend over backwards for my customers because,
of course,
because I can't exist without them.
Well, right. There is no business without the consumer buying the product.
I don't understand this mentality of coming in so hostile on shit.
Right. So you've ruined the VFX, not only the VFX of the TV shows on Disney Plus in the movies, but you've also made it so that the VFX houses don't want to work with you anymore.
Right. So
there's that.
Any Disney property, including all the Fox stuff, is going to suffer.
Right. So you have that. Then on top of that, right, she was when the whole Florida bill came out, that whole thing.
Yeah, the Don't Say Gay bill or whatever.
And we talked about this. Chapek did not want to get involved. Chapek came out and said, we're not going to get involved in that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Regardless of, I think the bill is insane. But and again, that's not what we do here. We don't talk about politics. But from a business standpoint, especially in Disney's situation, you cannot, because what the government in Florida is like.
Right.
You can't thumb your nose at them.
But Victoria Alonso was one of the biggest ones to push Chapek. She came out and was railing Chapek about not going hard after that.
But the problem is that
she made him change his stance.
See, but the problem is that Chapek, say what you want, and I shit on him, but he was right, because this is not business as usual. We're in a post-Trump era of the GOP. They're going to do crazy shit.
Right. But he was warned, and that's the thing, right? So DeSantis told him, you don't want to do this because this is what's going to happen.
Right.
But Victoria Alonso rallied the troops and forced Chapek to go against the wishes.
But I just don't understand how she, like, I don't understand what from a business standpoint your victory is.
Your victory was you cared more about representation and the rights and the movement over what the consequences were.
It's very strange, you know. I don't care what Disney thinks about gay people.
Right.
I really don't.
No.
I just entertain
right.
me.
But you lost your self-governance because you listened to her and the people that were following her. So she's destroyed your VFX. She was a proponent of helping you lose your self-governance in Florida.
But that's the thing, is that, like, you look at these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Kathleen Kennedy is another one.
Oh, she's got to go.
And Feige.
Mm-hmm.
But Feige's in a kind of a different realm because, you know, he has that whole Endgame saga.
Yeah.
But, like, Victoria Alonso, like, what all you're doing is tearing down.
Right. So she also is the one who pushed the MCU, which was Phase 4, which became a financial disaster for them, and including into Phase 5. So you have basically destroyed the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Is that they just went about it the wrong way. Like, I wanted them to incorporate the female heroes. I just didn't want the female heroes to come in and be like, fuck everything that's happened before. We're better than anything you've ever seen.
But the problem is, yes, and I agree to you to an extent, but the problem is that the female heroes that you wanted to include are the ones that have already failed. You've already seen the failure of it, and you knew what was going to happen. So, again, Feige should have said, I agree with you, and we have to do something, but I can't use Ironheart and I can't use Miss Marvel. These are perpetual failures.
Right, but you could have used She-Hulk.
Sure, She-Hulk, not obviously that iteration that we got, but I'm saying you could have found ways to incorporate strong female leads, but don't use the characters that have always failed. And you did that, and they've always failed. America Chavez. These are characters that are never, ever over. They have failed time and time again in the comics. That's the thing,
is that if they had successful runs...
Yeah, which they've never had.
You know,
Miss Marvel was the lowest rated...
I think you could roll with that.
Sure. But Miss Marvel, the lowest rated lower than She-Hulk. Miss Marvel was lower than She-Hulk in the ratings. It was the lowest rated out of all of the Disney Plus shows. But yet you want to continually push this character and people keep on rejecting it. But that was because Victoria Alonso was forcing them to do it. So she ruined that.
I don't understand why she had so much pull. Because
she's the checkbox.
I know, but if I'm Feige...
Because Feige's scared shitless of the checkbox.
But if I'm Feige, I would have said to her, why don't you concentrate on the FX?
Mm-hmm. Okay? He should have.
Why don't you go lick the boots of the FX companies that you fucking drove out, and don't worry about the story.
But it's the same thing that Chapek should have said about the Florida bill and said, you take care of what I'll handle this the way I see fit. But no, they're not.
But that's the thing. That's the point of a CEO.
Mm-hmm.
The point of the CEO is to go deal with the grubby politicians.
Yep.
So that the creatives don't have to. And look, gay rights is incredibly important.
Sure, of course.
But as a business, the whole point of the reason the CEO gets all the money is he has to do the grubby, dirty shit to keep the business afloat.
Right.
And if that means make nice with DeSantis, even if it's grubby, he does it.
Right. Because the consequences of going against it were so tremendously large. And you should have looked at that and said, I understand what you're saying. In principle, I agree with you, but we cannot lose our self-governance. There's nothing that I cannot put your activism over self-governance of Florida. And he did it, though. He chose to do it,
Well,
and they're
Chapek did.
fucked. Right, Chapek.
I wonder if Iger would have. I don't think. Here's the thing.
I
is
think
that
Iger would have had a little bit more
I think Iger wouldn't.
pushback.
Listen,
which he's trying to do now.
right, but I don't think. I think if Iger was still in power, because regardless of how you feel about him, whether he's woke, whatever it is, he is incredibly good at making deals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
he could have made nice.
Right. I think he would have made
Right.
nice, and you could still have your parades and all of that shit. But instead, you've lost your self-governance. You have no relationship with the state of Florida anymore.
Right.
Even though one of your biggest theme parks is there. And to top it all off, you have taken 2 franchises that are home runs and ground them into the dirt.
Yep. And just one last thing about Victoria Alonso. She was also pushing Feige where she wouldn't allow the name X-Men to be used when they finally debut.
Yeah, I saw that. She said something about she didn't like X-Men because of the name.
Right, because there's a lot of women in there, and it's like, yeah, that's not what it's about. X-Men is about mankind.
Right.
It's not about men. So that's an iconic name.
Right, it's like-
you cannot
it's like-
lose the
right.
IP of X-Men, which is universally
But it's
loved
like-
and known.
It's like with Luke. They did the character assassination of Luke. They did that bullshit with Obi-Wan, and we're getting a season 2, which is
Yeah,
crazy. And it just seems that like your male protagonists go one of 2 ways now, especially with Disney, which the reason we talk about Disney so much is because they're a monopoly and they own basically all of our childhood at this point.
Exactly.
And you either have, an effeminized, useless, along for the ride dude, or a grumpy old man.
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
That's all they are. That's it. Yeah. So, again, when Iger looks at what has been lost financially and what the bleak future financially looks like, he had to make that change. Iger, he didn't want to. Under no circumstances did he want to, but he knew that it's going to be more loss.
Why didn't he want to? Because if he's a businessman and he looks at what happened over the last 2 phases, you failed.
Right.
You failed. The content you were putting out was garbage. Why didn't he want to? You failed.
Right.
You can bring another person in of diversity who's not going to fail.
Right.
This person failed.
Right. You failed. Just like Kathleen Kennedy has failed.
Right. You can
failed.
bring in another woman who won't fail.
Right.
That's my point to it, is that no one is saying get a white cis man in there. No. You want to bring in another, Latinx gay person? Fine.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
As long as they're ready
Hell,
to
no one knew she was gay up until this firing. Unless you knew her.
Right. But I mean, it's going to everything's coming out now.
Right, but I mean that wasn't something that was even really common knowledge. We're finding it out now, but again, that had nothing to do with it. But now all of a sudden everybody's, you've got the activists shouting, well, what, oh, she's fired because she's gay.
No, she's fired
of course
because
she was not.
She literally took a giant corporation that was a monopoly for all intents and purposes and is crushing it into the ground.
She took an evergreen property and chopped it down to kindlewood. And what, we should just be okay with that because she's gay?
You know what the thing is that if you say everyone in a room is an asshole, maybe you're the asshole.
Sure. Right.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I mean, hopefully this will stop the hemorrhaging, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
So we'll put this one to bed. Jim, as always, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Just drawing every week,
Yep.
getting it out there on the social media,
Yeah,
preparing.
you did John Carter, right?
John Carter.
Yeah, that was rad.
Yeah.
It's another Disney flop.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Maybe they should give the property to somebody else to make something good of. But yeah, so just hey, check out the social media. There's hopefully new drawings every week that you might like. So if you want to take a look,
Yeah.
subscribe, that'd be awesome.
All right, guys, so that's episode 46 of The Corner. CatalystCrafting.com is the main website. Catalyst Creations NH is the Etsy store. Like I said, we hit over 1,000. We've got the Patreon going now, patreon.com/CatalystCrafting. Should we do an announcement today, or you want to wait?
We'll wait a little bit.
All right. We'll wait. But yeah, I mean, let me know what you guys think. Have you seen Terrifier? Do you think it's a campy and fun? What did you think of Cocaine Bear? Do you think Elizabeth Banks has some chops? Are you one of the 3 people that liked Blood and Honey? Do you think that the Presidential Medal of the Arts is a meaningless award? And how do you feel about Victoria Alonso's firing? Is it good? Is it bad? Let me know in the comments. All right, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.